Chants calling for the removal of Syrian regime leader Bashar al-Assad filled the streets of the city of Sueda. The anger is in response to the latest spike in food prices, caused by a slide in the nation's currency.
I have 3 children and expecting a 4th child, and my income barely suffices. The prices are very high. I cannot buy cherries, bananas, or any fruits for my children.
The Syrian pound's crash comes ahead of the harshest U.S. sanctions yet. They take effect next week. New restrictions outlined in the Caesar Syria Civil Protection Law will punish any firm that does business with the regime. That would expand existing sanctions that target high-powered individuals and the Syrian oil sector. With investors rattled, the pound sunk to a record low of 3,000 to $1 on the black market this week, extending a losing streak that started with the outbreak of the Syrian civil war. Before the fighting in 2011, the currency had traded as high as 47 to the dollar. The conflict has cost the economy more than $500 billion over the past 9 years.
We're doing without meat and chicken. Living conditions are really horrible. And at the same time, diesel, petrol and gas are priced in dollars. It's really bad.
Allies like Iran and Russia have helped Assad hold on to power despite years of conflict and an economic meltdown. Critics now fear the new sanctions will do little to put pressure on a regime that's been indifferent to the widespread misery of its people. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, let's go to Yahya al Aridi in Strasbourg. He's the spokesman for the Syrian Negotiation Commission. Welcome to Money Talks, Mr. al Aridi. Now, as we heard there, $1 currently buys you around 3,000 Syrian pounds. Before the war in 2011, $1 only bought you about 47 Syrian pounds. Why are we seeing the currency plummet right now?
We see this because of the fact that there's poverty in Syria. The country's economy is devastated because of the war. And there is nobody to come to the rescue of the regime that has consumed the economy of country, be it industrial, agricultural, touristic, whatever. It consumed all these things. Add to all these things the corruption that struck the regime at its highest level. Now, the dollar, as you said, was around 50 liras. Now it's around 3,000 liras. And this is something that has never happened before. And it is 10 days before the implementation and the effects of the Caesar law, American law. And the regime is trying to use this law in order to justify the horrible situation Syrian people are in now. This is a terrible situation. As I said, the country's economic situation totally is devastated. And there is no way to get out of this saga, this problem, without the regime's removal through the implementation of UN Security Council resolutions, the Geneva Communique and 2254, which was offered by the United States and the UN in general. The regime is not responding because it is stuck to power at the expense of Syrian people, blood and souls.
Now, as we heard there, the US is preparing to introduce new sanctions which will come into effect on June 15. They're ideally targeting the Syrian regime, but as we know, these sanctions are having a very, I guess, harsh impact on ordinary Syrians. So if ordinary people in Syria are suffering because of these sanctions, should they be reconsidered?
Well, there are ways for reconsidering this law, as the United States said, that commitment to the political solution is a way out. Releasing almost 500,000 Syrian prisoners by the regime is a way out. Not continuing this military action not besieging certain areas in Syria, and some other measurements the regime has refused without considering the people's plight, the Syrian people's plight. And the last thing the regime thinks about are the Syrian people. Now, as you know, that medicine and food supplies are not included in this Caesar law. However, the regime, before the effects of this law have started, it started to close all doors towards medicine or food supplies, and their prices are rocketing. This is an expression of a dictatorship that cares only about its continuity in power. This is the problem, and that's why all this pressure on the part of the United States, the UN resolutions, but the regime is not responding. Its supporters, be they Iran or Russia, probably are having real problems with it.
Okay, Yahya al Aridi in Strasbourg from the Syrian Negotiation Commission. Thank you so much for sharing your analysis on Money Talks.